Hi Jagannath. So lots of people. Achinkya, Aishwarya, Anushka, Dharmveer, Dilpreet, Ekta, Jagannath, Kanika, Karan, Kaushik, Shrey, Subhash, Supravo, Lohit, Mithali, Affan, Abdullah. Okay, quite a few of you here. Great. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for joining in. And this webinar is, of course, on what are the communication skills that you need in order to progress, or let's say grow and have a fantastic career as a corporate lawyer. Okay, this is what we are going to be talking about. So to introduce myself, my name is Komal Shah. I am the co-founder and content head for LawSikho, and basically I'm responsible for curating all of the online courses, most of online courses that we create at LawSikho. Quite a few of you have been there in the webinars before. Who is new? Can I know who's attending the webinars for the first time? Just raise your hand. Who's attending? Achinkya is attending for the first time. Who else? Dilpreet, Shrey. Okay. Anushka. Okay. Okay. There are new people also. Okay, but the rest of people have been into the webinars before. Right. Yeah, new here attending it for the first time. Hi, Affan Abdullah. Muhammad Affan Abdullah. Welcome. Great. So let's get into the topic on communication skills. So what are the types, or what are the kinds of the communication skills, okay, that can help you and that can aid your career as a corporate lawyer? That's what we're going to look at. Let me just share my screen. Okay. So first of all, let's get, when you say communication, okay, communication skills, and if you say communication, what do you guys understand about it? Now, there are, I can say, there are quite a few cases where you have a people have a little bit different idea about communication, okay, than what it is intended to achieve. So just let me have this view from you. If you were to put, when you are saying you have to communicate, then what do you understand? Can I have some views here from the people? When you have to communicate, okay, what do you understand with that? What do you understand that you have to communicate? It looks like a very abstract question, but I'll tell you, how many of you have heard of a game that's called Chinese Whispers? Who's heard of this game? Chinese Whispers? Anyone has heard of this game? Chinese Whispers. What happens in Chinese Whispers? What happens in Chinese Whispers? Expressing ourselves, a point of view. That's what Shrey is saying. Okay. What happens in Chinese Whispers? Heard but don't know. Okay. So what happens is that you are actually supposed to communicate or tell something to someone in their ears. And then that person is supposed to tell it to a third person. Third is supposed to tell it to a fourth person. Yes. So Anushka, that's the point. So you are supposed to tell it or whisper it, okay, to the different people. And often you find that what you have communicated to someone in the beginning, okay, and what the first person has heard, the last person says something entirely different than what was told to the first person. So as Anushka has rightly put, it is distorted after it's been sent by various people, and it has gone through a lot of different channels. So when you say communicate, the idea or the focus is not just on expressing yourself, but It's on ensuring that the other person gets it correctly. Okay. So the focus is that the other person has to receive it. Focus is on the receipt of the communication. You need to be able to get through to the person with whom you are communicating. Okay, it may seem very simple to you that I am telling this so simply. I am explaining like I am speaking about it in such a simple manner, and why is the other person not understanding? Okay, so you have to communicate not in order to express your thoughts or give out your views, but in order to be able to get the message through to the other person with whom you are communicating. Okay, so the focus of communication is more on receipt, on the recipient, okay, rather than on the communicator. So it's not enough if you feel that you can put together some thoughts into words. So if you may believe that, okay, this is so well put, I have clearly said this. Okay. And how many times it happens that the other person doesn't understand it, even though you said that you have very clearly said that. It's so clear. There can't be any doubt in understanding, and yet the other person doesn't seem to get it in the same way, right? So the emphasis or the importance is that the other person must be able to understand that communication. Okay. And he has to understand it in the same manner in which you intended to convey it. Okay. When you wanted to explain something in a certain way, the other person must get it in the same way. That's when you can say that the communication was effective. If the understanding is not in the same way, okay, then that's not a proper or effective communication. Now, for you to be able to break down and explain something so that the other person will be understanding clearly, you must understand it very clearly and in depth. So you have to understand, I mean, just think of it like you were, it would have been so many times this would have happened that you were researching on a particular subject and there were gaps in your understanding. So when you put it down in a written form or when you started to talk about it, okay, it was very difficult to explain because in the first place there were gaps in your understanding itself. Okay, it's not only that someone will ask a question and you will be lost. That's a second phase altogether, but you wouldn't even be able to explain it clearly unless you have understood it without any doubts and in depth. Like the puzzle must be completely fit, okay, and clear in your mind. Then you can explain someone something in depth. Okay, and how many times it happens that that's exactly what Chinese whisper is. Like how many times it happens that someone communicates something to you, there is a lack of clarity at your end itself. You haven't understood what that person wanted to communicate. So then how are you going to communicate it onwards? Okay, so you have to understand it very clearly and in depth, then you will be able to communicate. Now, why is this so important for a lawyer? Okay, why is being able to communicate clearly important for a lawyer? Obviously, a clear communication is important for any person, in fact. Okay, because we get through our lives and we get things done, we get things moving only by means of communication. Okay, and when there are misunderstandings, there are issues, cases where people don't get us and we don't get other people. Okay, there can be problems that create in day-to-day dealings. But why is it so crucial for a lawyer? Okay, so you don't have a product which you can put before someone and you ask for a price. Okay, if you were dealing like you were selling a certain product. Okay, you can talk about it and you can say that what went into making it, what was the effort, but you right before someone, they can see it, they can see that it is there. So like, you can just quote for a price for that. That doesn't need a lot of communication because someone can physically see it. Okay. But when you are offering a service, okay, or a skill, okay, that is what you are offering to anybody, be it an employer, be it a client. What you are offering is your skill and your abilities. So when you are offering abilities or skills, then that is the question in the mind of any employer or client. Prove that it is worth. Okay. How will you prove that, like, this is the salary which you deserve? Or how will you prove that, like, these that you have in order to handle the assignment? Okay. So in order to be able to answer this question, you have to be able to communicate effectively. Okay. So no amount of technical knowledge will help you unless you can explain its relevance clearly, right? You may be highly skilled at a technical knowledge in some kind of law, like, you may be an expert. You have the kind of depth in that subject which no one else has, maybe. Okay. But unless you are able to communicate or you are able to express to the other people that it is relevant for them, or that you have that kind of depth, okay, how will someone else come to know? So you have to explain, you have to be able to make its relevance known to someone else. Okay. So without communication skills, even if you develop an excessive amount of technical knowledge, it will become very difficult for someone to, like, appreciate or give you work, or come to you for some advice, because you are not able to communicate it. Okay. You have a lot of technical knowledge, but you are not able to communicate that. Okay. And this is another thing which is a myth sometimes that people have. Okay. That it is believed that some people are just, they by nature they are very good at communication. Okay. So people think that naturally they are like this. Okay. So they think that it is a personality trait. I mean, you will have heard or you will have known definitely of friends who are in this zone. They are very able to get and make friends very easily. They are able to get into social groups very easily. They are able to be the stars of social media very easily. They are able to do that. So people just think that, they have a natural flair to do this. Okay. How many of you know people like this? They can get into social groups very easily. They are stars. Like, they will have loads of followers and on the social media. They are very popular. Like, and you think that they have this natural flair, that they are able to do this. Okay. So this is what you think, but actually it is not a personality trait. So it's not like, someone has this natural flair, or so, to some extent they may have it, but actually it is a skill. Okay. And what is the characteristic of a skill? Skill can be learned and developed. Okay. So if it's a personality trait, it takes a lot of time to change certain things. Like, you're conditioned by your environment. It takes time to develop a different kind of personality trait. But skill can be learned and developed. Just like how you learn to swim, just like how you learn to ride a bike, just like how you learn to use the keypad with both of, like, both of your hands, just like how you learn any musical instrument. Okay. It's a skill. So some people may take more time, some people may take less time, but it's a skill. So it can be learned and developed. It's not like, if you don't have it, you can't do it anytime. That's not how it is. Okay. So skill can be learned. Now, why corporate law can be something different where you are talking of communication skills? Because often in corporate law, the levels at which you are communicating will be very wide and diverse. Okay. Uh, if you look at litigators, to some extent, there may be like, fewer or lesser channels of communication that they face. Okay. Because it's a case that someone, let's assume it's a huge company. Okay. And someone in the company is handing over the case to the litigator. So usually it will flow through or be channelized through the legal department. So like the sole point of contact for them will be like, the legal department, where they are communicating and they are updating the status of the case as it goes on. But if you are into corporate law, like, often you will find that you have to communicate at a lot of different levels. Maybe you communicate with the legal department, maybe you communicate with the CXOs, maybe you communicate with the board of directors. Sometimes maybe you communicate with a very lower level people to understand what is happening, at a bottom line. Okay, so the levels at which you will be communicating if you are working in corporate law, and especially if you are in in-house roles, okay, the levels will be very wide and diverse. Okay. So you can be speaking to a peon at one point, a director at another, and someone from the regulator at a third point. So just think of that, at each level you have to be appropriate. Okay. So there'll be a different manner in which you can get through to a peon naturally than how you can get through to a CXO. And if you are speaking to a regulator, again, you will be very, very careful how you are communicating, rather than if you are internally discussing some matter with your client. Okay. So the level of appropriateness or care that you have to exercise in your communication will kind of increase. Okay. Because the levels are this wide. So you can also be speaking to people from multiple different functions. Okay, for example, if you are, let's say, advising on an employment related matter, so you will not only be speaking to the legal counsel and maybe the directors, you will probably also be speaking to someone in HR. Okay, so the functions at which you may be talking, which you may be speaking, will be very different. So you will also be communicating with multiple different functions when you are working sometimes on corporate law cases. You may be communicating with accountants, you may be communicating with the finance people. Okay. So it will be, you may be communicating with marketing people where you are vetting certain advertisements. Okay. So it can be a lot of different functions which you may be exposed to when you are handling corporate law matters, which again makes it even more necessary that you are careful. Okay. So what are the kind of skills you need to develop in order to be able to do this, to be able to communicate at a lot of different levels? Okay. Vertically. So different stages or different positions of people vertically, and also functionally different levels. Okay. It calls for a wide array of communication skills, because the appropriate manner in which you get through, like I said, the ability to get through so that the other person understands, is very different. If I give you an example, I knew one specific director. Um, if he was speaking to a peon, he would be speaking to like 𝗷𝗶𝘗. I've seen that. I've seen that happening. And that's how the peon got it. Like, he got it. Okay, I need to act now. This is what he's saying. I need to act. If he was speaking to marketing people, he would be like, come on, go, that sort of thing. So he was able to change his manner for a lot of different kind of people. You could see it was very interesting to see him communicate. Okay, because he was able to change his manner of expressing things depending upon whom he was talking to. Okay, and that's how, like, you get through. So this is something that is very interesting, that can be useful. So your oral communication skills, naturally, this is the first thing you come across anywhere, like you are, it's very likely that you will be talking to some people before for certain things before you get to a written mode of communication. Okay, usually you get in touch with people more through oral or verbal communication skills. Okay, this is very important, like being able to speak at the right time in a conversation. Okay, so just assume like there is a meeting that's going on and you have a certain idea or thoughts about something, but by the time in your head you put those thoughts together to be able to express, the meeting is already proceeded to, like, another point in the discussion, and then you said, okay, what's the point now, I can't talk about this now because they've already gone to the next level. Okay, and then so many times it will happen that everything is over, and then you are sitting and you are reflecting about what happened in the conversation, and then you think that, oh, I should have said this actually. Okay, how many times it happens? Has it happened to anybody? After the conversation is over, you think, hey, I should have said this. When they said this, I should have said this. Okay, happens. It happens, right? When they had said this, actually, I should have said this. Anushka, it happens every time, right? So this is what. So in your mind, that quick insight or thought flow is not happening at that particular point of time when it should click. Okay. This is what is happening. So when you are able to just piece yourself down and reflect, that's when you think that, this is what I should have said. Actually, it's a very good exercise to do, because, like, the next time you have thought of something before. Okay, but the thing is that thoughts or that insights should have struck immediately in that conversation. So we can talk of how you will develop that, like, that is only when it kind of strikes only when you have done it one too many times. Okay, so for example, in your office, if you are kind of facing in a meeting and you want that those insights should strike you or thought should strike you right at that split time, like, when it's supposed to be given, you must have done a lot of different group discussions. So your mind is, like, in that gear already, it is running, already circulating, and you are thinking of, like, what should happen next. Okay, so that is something that is a necessary skill that you must know. You are able to speak at the right time. That's one skill that is useful. Being able to use the right words in a discussion. How many times, like, we will be fumbling, we will be thinking that, what's the right word for this, what's the right word for this, it's not striking in my mind. Like, even in our mother tongues also this can happen, that you were thinking, what is the right word for this, what's the correct word for this. Okay, you end up sometimes asking also, what do you say, what do you call this, like, you end up asking people also. So being able to use the right words. Okay, and if you will see, there are some people who will have this, like, this, what people call the gift of the gab. They know exactly what to say. Okay, and if you see, it will seem like they are putting their words on a weighing scale, and then they come out of their mouth, so they know exactly what to say. It's neither more nor less than what is required to be said. Okay, so some people will know exactly what to say, and that also, like I said, it comes from a lot of practice, where you have those, that kind of thoughts flowing through your brain. Then you will be in this gear that you will know exactly what to say. You have to have that level of vocabulary also, of course, right? You have to have the vocabulary in the language, whichever language you are communicating at that point of time. You should have that kind of vocabulary, that the right words, the right kind of words for what you are intending to communicate. Okay? Again, depending upon the recipient. Using inappropriate words can sometimes land you in legal trouble. Okay. Now, I don't have an exact example for this, but I can say that there was once there was like, a speech that someone had to make. Okay. And the lady who got up to speak, she was a little bit conscious of using the mic for the first time. Okay. And the mic was a little bit shaky. The voice was moving. And then she held the mic and she was like, am I audible? This is what she was intended to say, because she wanted to say to the people that, can you hear me clearly? And she ended up saying, am I edible? Okay. So just think of that. Like, you are on a dais and you end up using absolutely incorrect kind of word, to say that, am I edible? So inappropriate words that can, like, this is not an example, but this is where you can be put in an embarrassing situation. Okay. If you don't have that kind of vocabulary, right? Yeah, I have a comment on that. Someone is laughing. But I mean, just think, if you were in that position, okay, you would have, if you weren't exposed to that and you didn't correct yourself. Okay. So, and some people are very smart. They are even able to come back on their fumbles. Even if they have fumbled, they are able to come back very quickly. Okay, on that. So, but and this is a different thing, like, you end up using inappropriate words. Sometimes you can land, like, it's just someone can complain against you that it's a completely inappropriate word, you can't use it. Okay? So you have to know what is the right word to use in a proper communication. Using the correct voice culture. Voice culture is something, it's if you look at and search, there are trainings that are provided for voice culture. Okay, you will be hearing people or the RJs on radio, you hear that, like, they are able to change their voice depending upon the kind of show they are conducting. Okay, so someone who is in a, like, return from office time RJ show will be a very pump up enthusiastic kind of guy. People are listening at a very good in a very good, like, zone at that time. Someone who is talking or doing a late night show will have a little bit slow, calm kind of voice. So using the correct voice culture. What is the voice culture? And there are trainings provided by this for people. What are the general communications that happen in an office environment apart from office communications? So this is all these are all things that are relevant. Like I was talking about the discussion that you have on being able to speak something at the right time or using the right words. So there cannot be one common kind or a type of communication. Okay, because like I said, and more particularly for corporate law, you will be required to communicate at a lot of different levels. So it's not one type that will happen. Okay. Yeah, modulating the voice according to the situation. Okay. And more so being able to get through to the other person using the right pitch, using the right pronunciation, using the right pause that is there. Okay, so these are all voice culture. Right? Sometime back I was very keen on, like, getting a proper dedicated training on that. I didn't find something that would, like, work for my timings, but it's something that really attracted me. And voice culture is what if you use that, you will be able to make people really listen. How to work on voice culture? Even I am searching for that, Shrey. Okay, so you can find, like, them, but there are trainings that are available on voice culture if you are able to do that. I mean, and you find these kind of people in that, even in your, if you've looked around your office or in your college or somewhere in your relations, there will be some people they are such that you just feel like pausing everything and listening to them. That's an excellent voice culture. Okay? Respectful, tactful, sensitive to environment in which you are, and use common sense, then one will be fine in any setting. Yes, Vaibhav, that is correct. But see the language that you're using. Okay. So you're these kind of words that you're using, immediately it may not even strike a lot of people. Okay. The way you have expressed here is you are saying if you're respectful, tactful, sensitive. In many cases, these kinds of words may not even strike people to be able to express that. Okay. So you may fumble to find the right word, and that situation can become very difficult. Okay. General communications that happen in the office environment can be loads. But this is something also that you will be required to undergo one-to-one and one-to-many oral communications. Okay, so one-to-one, someone is asking for examples. One-to-one can be communication with your reporting manager, okay, with really senior people, communication with, let's say, a group which you are required to train or explain certain things to, communication with regulators, okay, where you are talking to and trying to get information from or give information to. Okay, there can be lots of different one-to-one communication with your juniors where you want to get work done from them. Okay, communication with the peers, other departments where you need some information from them. One-to-one communication can be many in a corporate setting, and one to many oral communication will also be there. You will have to face it. Like, not everyone may be making a speech to a whole group. Like, not everyone may be involved in public speaking, although it is a very advisable skill to have for any lawyer. But let's say not everyone is in public speaking. Even then, you may, for example, be gathering all your juniors and you may be talking to them, or you may be making a presentation to the board. It is still a one to many oral communication. Okay, you may be sitting before a panel for an interview, still a one to many communication. Okay, so you have to be able to deal with in one to one and one to many communication settings also in a lot of ways. One should also be allowed to be somewhat vulnerable. Yeah. So the point is not on being plastic or being unnatural. Okay, that's not what the point is, Weber. So you have to be real. That is fine, but you don't want to fumble and you don't want the thought flow to stop somewhere completely in the middle where you don't know what to say. Okay, you don't want to be in a situation like that. Even if that is a situation, you should be real enough and be courageous enough to say that I don't know what to say at this point. Okay, or I have lost my train of thought. But it is a communication that you give to someone else, right? So you need to be able to deal with that, right? How come some people are completely effortless when it comes to speaking on a dais? We have seen that, right? They're up with a mic and they're effortless. Okay, so they don't need anything. They don't need, like, prompts. They are just very, very, very comfortable at home speaking with a mic on a one-to-many communication. They are at home, effortless. Okay, I have seen people like that, and they are amazing to listen to. Written communication. Okay. Someone was asking about what to do to develop communication skills. We'll come to that. Okay. But this is what you're going to be able to express to what are the skills that you need in the first place. That's the list we are trying to make here. Okay, so you need to be able to speak on time. You need to be able to have the right words. You need to be able to use a proper voice culture when you are orally communicating. These are the skills that you need. So we are right now first making a list of it. Then we will come that how do you develop this. Okay. So when you are writing, are you able to express yourself properly in formal and informal written communication? This is the only two things that you will have, right? You may be writing some informal email, or you may be writing messages or texts or something, or you may be writing formal communication, okay, which is meant to achieve some purpose for your work. So there are ample instances of people using completely informal language with a colleague or on a professional platform, and sometimes, in fact, often it does not give a very good impression. Okay, so you can be using languages like yar and all of that. Okay, listen to buddy, or you can't be using some kind of languages in a really formal setting or a formal communication. You have to think of the recipient all the time. You have to think of the recipient. Okay, that is this the appropriate kind of language that you are using with with a colleague, or if you are using it on a professional platform? Is this the right kind of language? So you have to think of that. Okay, if it's a formal setting, it has to be a language that is to an extent discreet and formal. Okay, you can't be using really informal terminology. And so many times it will happen that because we are used to communicating things in short, okay, on WhatsApp and all, you can end up making like a completely different use, or you can be end up using very informal language where you weren't supposed to. Okay, and if it is sent to someone else, it can become a problem, right? On the other hand, I also know someone who writes personal letters or emails with "please find attached herewith," and I trust this meets your requirement. Like, I mean, you don't use completely, if you're using informal communication, you can't end up doing something on a very formal. I mean, like the kind of it just becomes something that people will laugh and take it as a joke. Yeah, never should we burden ourselves that we have to communicate, as it will make us even more desperate and we are likely to fumble. It's okay to have short silences or gaps in the conversation. Yes, okay. But again, like I said, you have to depend, or you have to think on what the other person is taking. Okay. So, and gaps were used, in fact, very nicely, will have a very, very decided impact on the recipe. Okay. So personal letters or emails, you have to be able to, if you are communicating with your friends or in a social group, if you are writing, please find attached here with, and I trust this meets your requirements. And it's just something of a joke between the friends that will happen, right? So I know someone who does this actually. Are you able to use direct language, which prompt section, or do you end up using ambiguous language? So no one understands who is supposed to do what. Okay, so we in a written communication we are coming to the point that if it is formal, you have to be able to use it that way. If it's informal, you have to be able to use it that way. Here, this is very important in a written communication, that are you able to use, I struggled with this for ages, like, I wouldn't be able, even if I felt it is so simple, it is so straightforward, and why is this not understood in this manner by the person who is reading this? But like, it is, you have to, you can't think of it like that. You have to think of who is reading it. Okay, so you cannot think about your own background and environment when you are using that. You have to think of what will the other person need to take action. Okay, so you end up using ambiguous language, so no one understands who is supposed to do what. Okay, I struggled with this for a while. Okay, so if I would be writing, it wouldn't be clear to the other person what action they are supposed to take. Okay, and I would not get that action, and in the end I will like face this situation that that particular work is not done. Okay, when I would check, it would not be done, and then I'll be saying that this is what I said, and then the other person will say that this is what I understood of it. Okay, so it has to be a very direct communication. Yeah. Active voice and passive voice is one thing that will be there. So your direct communication will be more of active voice. Please do this. It's as simple as this. Okay. And I would be sometimes using, would you mind doing this? So then the answer is, I don't mind. Right? But doesn't mean that I have to do this. So that's the kind of thing, you have to, it has to be a very direct communication which makes someone sit up and take action on it. Okay? There's a whole science to appropriate email communication, and this is you will have sometimes some companies actually have very specific codes on how these things have to be used. I remember one of our directors actually had put a message that would come back if you have put him in the CC, then he will say that this person, his name was Mr. X, will not respond and act on emails where he is marked a CC. You will get a response like that back in email. When you send him that email, you will get this kind of response that he will not act on emails where he has been marked a CC. If you want him to act, you have to direct the email to him. So you have to write it to him. Probably because the culture in that company is like, everybody will be marked as a CC on something. And at the end, like, someone gets receiving a lot of irrelevant communication and the really important matter gets lost in that. Okay, so he had done this that if you put him as a CC for information, he will not act on it and he will not respond to it. If you want him to act, if you want him to respond, then you have to address the email to him. This is what he did. Like, he set up an auto response like this. Okay. So addressing the recipient correctly. Okay, you are addressing that person properly. Like I used to deal in a company where they had offices in some 19 different countries, and the people in different countries would have a different way in which they prefer to be addressed. So you have to be able to use that, like, you have to use the proper prefix or suffix that is the norm in that country or in that place. So addressing the recipient correctly using CCs. So this is something like you have to copy people who are relevant, and you don't have to copy the word and don't have to make the word as a CC in that. Okay. Adding your signatures in many companies, like this becomes mandatory that there is a signature that you add, and there is also a confidentiality warning kind of that gets added automatically to the email. Okay, to state that this email is supposed to be read only by the recipient. Okay. So keeping confidentiality in mind, I have also been working in a company, and this is specific for BFIS companies. So if you go and work for companies which are in the BFIS sector, you can be having people who are working in that company face confidentiality restrictions. So people below a certain level are not allowed to send any emails outside the organization. They are simply not allowed. So their communication only will be internal. If they are sending something on addresses which are not ending with the domain of the company, their email will be blocked immediately because they are not allowed. Okay. People above a certain level can be allowed, but the minute they send an email to an address which is outside the company domain, immediately there will be a pop-up that comes. Okay, that what is the category of this email? Are you taking the confidentiality restrictions in care? What is the level of importance of this email? So these kinds of things can happen when it's email communication. And companies have these kind of restrictive software, right? Everyone wishes to cover themselves as so market to many people, but this is what happens, like, there has to be a discipline to copying people. You cannot be copying the world over, like, you have to be careful. Okay, and this is why, like, as you are saying, that people just want to cover themselves. That's why people like this director will be saying that if you have CC'd me, then I will not respond and I'll not do anything on this. You want me to take a step for it, or you want me to be notified, send me a direct email. Okay. So keeping confidentiality, as I said, there can be restrictions on email that you send outside the organization. Specifically for BFIS, this kind of restrictions can be there. So the skill here is you have to be aware of all of these things. Okay, when you are working for the organization or you are an external person working for that organization, you have to be aware. You also have to be aware that what thing needs to be sent to whom. Okay, for example, I had a company where, a BFIS company, when some audit was going on, certain things would only be sent to the audit partner. Like there will be different associates of the audit firm who were working on our audit, but certain things would not be sent to them. It would only be sent to the, because it was highly confidential in nature, it would be sent only to the partner. So you have to be aware of all of these things also when you are communicating or working with corporates as clients. You have to be very aware of all of these things. You can develop these skills over a period of time and with repeated use, but you have to be able to pick the skills for that. Okay, and like I said, skills, you have to understand first of all what you need. Okay, you have to look at yourself and you have to think of what do you need. This is the work that you are going to be doing. So for that, what are the interfaces that you have? Whom are you going to be communicating with? Okay, and uh, what do you need to learn in order to be able to communicate with that level of people or that category of people? Okay. There are often trainings that are conducted by the companies themselves and the firms themselves on what you are supposed to communicate and whom. There are organizations who conduct this kind of trainings. Okay, because sometimes for legal departments, these and legal and compliance departments, these kinds of things become very important. Okay, because you may be having a lot of information, may be sitting with a lot of information, so therefore communicating what you need to communicate, what needs to be given, where you will be trained. Okay, there are chances that you will be trained by the organization itself, where it is very crucial for them. But if you are aware of, have a good vocabulary, if you are aware of what kind of people you are going to have an interaction with and how to get through to this level of people, okay, then it will be much better for you. Understanding what information is on a need to know basis deals with confidentialities, NDAs also, yes. So you will have NDA protection, but sometimes there is some information which can become public unintendedly, so you have to be very careful of how you are communicating and what you are communicating. Okay. So these kind of skills you will develop only over a period of time with repeated use. So the more you have trained yourself or practiced in this, okay, you have done a lot of group discussions for yourself. You have done or tried your hands on different kinds of emails or written communication. You have tried your hands maybe at public speaking. You have tried and found out how some people who speak very well speak and try to look at what is the kind of voice culture they are using. Okay, this is some things that you can gain over a period of time. How to start a conversation with someone and make that conversation going on, how to make any conversation engaging. And this is funny because as Indians, this is very often the thing that happens, that when uh, we have been trained, generally most of us will be kind of trained in coming straight to the point, right? that this is the work that I need from you. Okay. And in some countries outside India, and I have had this experience, that you cannot cut straight to the work. It's kind of considered to be an insult to the other person. You have to kind of ask, how are you? You have to make some small talk and then you come to your work. Okay, it's considered a bit curt that you directly reach to the point and talk about what is the work that you have with them. Okay, this is something that is that you will find uh, is prevalent in most of us. Okay, but like there will be people outside the country, like I have seen this. Another thing, talking to strangers is something which people find excessively difficult. That how can you talk to strangers? Okay, somebody whom you completely don't know, how do you get through to them? This is also something that I kind of changed when I went out of India. The norm is that any person who comes within arm's length distance of you, okay, it is mandatory that you at least say a hi. Doesn't matter that you don't know their name, doesn't matter that you don't know where they are working, what is happening. Even on a bus stop, if you are sending someone comes at an arm's length distance to you, you have to at least say hi and they'll say a hello back. Okay, the point is that you acknowledge their presence. Okay, and if you don't do this again, this is like, it is considered to be bad manners. It's considered that, like, you're just ignoring them. Okay, which is not well. I saw this, and like you could it's a just a little bit of courtesy that you have in working with other people. If someone comes, you at least say a hi. That's all that you say. You don't get into a conversation about how great the day is and what did you do and who are you, and you don't become intrusive, but you acknowledge their presence. Okay, so that's how you start the communication, and immediately they get into topics which would be very common for people to talk about. For example, Ireland, where I was, the icebreaker always will be weather, because the weather was something that it's rained almost so much of the time that people kind of hate that kind of weather. They want the sun to come out. For us, we want the rain to come, but they want the sun to come out, and this would always be an icebreaker in the communication. So when you want to start, you have to think of, depending upon this person, as you know them, what can be an icebreaker in the communication? What do you start with? Okay, and then that's like, something that can get the ball rolling. Whether politics is something, or religion is something, it can become very quickly very aggressive. So something which is very general, like a weather, okay, is a better icebreaker to begin with. So you think of what can be the icebreaker based on, the persons, as you know them, what is an icebreaker. Okay. More so, if people know about the other person's family members or something, then they ask after them. That is something which is very common. Okay, that you have come to know that someone in someone's family is uh, got hospitalized or is unwell or something. Then you simply ask about their health or ask after their health. Okay, or that someone themselves, they were facing some sort of illness, then you ask after that, that how are you doing, how are you keeping. Okay, and that is something which is also a very effective icebreaker in communication. Not getting too personal, but definitely how are you, okay, or how are you keeping. It's a very common icebreaker. So the more you come across different kinds of people, this is also something that is recommended, that the more age groups you are in contact with and the more different types of people you are in contact with, your skills will improve, because you have talked with different people, some topics that interest them, okay, for you to keep the conversation going. So what is the kind of training like? I had an English teacher. This is like the training, like it can be like this. I had one English teacher, she asked us to bring a small mirror in the classroom. Okay. And she will ask us to keep the mirror in front, and she will ask us to see how your lips are moving when you're talking, and see how you are pronouncing specific words. So, these kinds of basic things, very fundamental things when you are in your schooling years, can be very, very impactful. When you don't have that, mirror work is something which is very much recommended. Like, you are talking and you are making that communication before a mirror, like, and you are thinking that the other person is right there. So how are you going to be talking to them? On another occasion, I had got an extensive 1 week training. There are courses, there are, good places where you can be trained in speaking and where you can be trained in written communication. There are, if you search, you will find the one which is very most relevant for you, the one that is most relevant for you. So I got an extensive 1 week training in public speaking, and the essence there, like I said, was to be able to speak to strangers, people whom you don't know. Essence was to be able to communicate sharply and in minimal time. Okay, so 1.5 minute you will be given, and you have to communicate certain things in a one to many kind of situation. So and like it will depend upon how much people like you. Okay, so that's how you will be rated. So you can find courses like this which are very good, where you are getting training in public speaking. It becomes difficult when you make up your mind of starting a conversation and suddenly lots of doubts come in your mind. So it only comes with, a practice situation. You have to put yourself in a sandbox and try and do it. Okay. So this is something that we have. We have one English communication course, because we realize that, the kind of difficulty that someone just said, like you have lots of doubts in your mind, you are unclear about how to communicate, something is stopping you. All of these things we faced, we realized that this was such a widespread problem, even in writing. Like I've written a post only this morning. If you see the written communication, the sentence construction is is not good. Okay, so people will find a lot of difficulty in constructing a proper sentence. They are okay with spellings, they are okay with grammar, but when it comes to constructing a sentence properly, like putting the right phrases in the right place, there is struggle in that. So we found a lot of this, like, we over a period, we found this as a definite struggle, that people are facing this issue. Okay, in an oral communication, written communication, we have I there are definitely cases where people face issues like this. So we covered most kind of interactions that a lawyer would come across, and then that's what we will train people on, that how do you work on your grammar or your sentence construction or your delivery in such situations. That's what we put together. Okay. So I'm going to talk about that. Like I said, many people kind of don't prefer to have a discussion, but that's what I'm going to talk about. So if someone is not interested in that, like, they can leave at this point. I always make this, but this is what is covered in it. Okay, so we covered uh, oratory, writing, listening, and accuracy. All of these facets we have covered here. And if you look at the kind of exercises that it has most interactions that a lawyer is likely to come across. Okay, so because we are more dealing with lawyers and law students, we have covered that as an important element here. Like, if you know, so appropriate language for various specific legal scenarios in client counseling, writing notices, drafting in perfect English, important technical terms. Now, usually you would avoid jargons, but in some cases, that is the only appropriate word for you to use. So you use that. Communication in mediation. Okay. Article writing, business development, courtroom arguments, delivery of arguments and responding to questions, business meetings with corporate clients. Okay. How to prepare for meetings and personal interviews. How to give expert opinions of courts to journalists. Okay. How to train juniors. This is also something that is very important and people struggle to do this. Okay. You're not able to train, like you want to get something done, but you're not able to train. It's also a struggle. Communication with colleagues and reporting managers. CEO, director level and business leaders. Like I said, you have to communicate with varied uh, levels in an organization. How to be effective on YouTube videos. Like I've seen some of our students create such wonderful YouTube videos and they put it on their LinkedIn profiles. It's really good. Like they are able to communicate it in a very crisp manner in a little period of time. How to be effective in guest lectures or training sessions. This is all that we put together because we saw that people are facing difficulties with this. That's where this comes from. Oratory is not similar to direct and precise formal communication. Yeah, but then you need to be able to have good oratory skills also, where you are giving guest lectures, for example, or taking training sessions for clients. Okay. So, how to prepare and strategize for cross examinations from a communication perspective. You craft arguments which land on judges. Okay, your bosses or your other side. Landing, like I said, it has to land to other people. Drafting proper memos, all of these things are covered. Yes, you can have a look at this. If wherever we found that people were struggling with these things, we brought those exact things together to put it because that's what is required. General communications that happen in office environment, I dealt with. What do we need to do to improve communications? I dealt with. Mirror work, also more, that is practice. Think of whom you are interacting with, how to break ice. It becomes difficult when you make your mind of starting, so dealing with doubts. Okay, the more you put yourself in a sandbox and practice, do mirror work. Okay, and that is something that is useful. How much useful is Toastmasters Club? I don't have an idea, but you don't want to be in a situation, or maybe if you are aiming for a situation where you are able to use excellent kind of language, you are a speaker, you are an orator first. Okay, then you go for that. Okay, that's what I understand. So when speaking is your main thing, that's the thing, that's the thing for you, then you go to a Toastmasters club. But if you want to be able to communicate and just get through to the other person, okay, so this is not really beautiful and exceptional language. It's the language that uh, it's the language that the person on the other side understands. Okay, so for that you may not need to go to a Toastmasters club, but you have to be able to understand the appropriateness from the other person's perspective. Okay, what will land on them, that is the point. Okay, any questions that people have on this? So that is what about that diploma. So we are also doing a workshop. Now this is free to attend, but Ramanuj and Abhyuday are going to be doing this workshop, that they are going to talk about how you make a plan to improve your English communication step by step. Okay, so it's a 12 months plan. It's not something of a 1 week crash course where you become like a pro and a superb communicator. That's not how, but it's a plan. But that plan is what they are going to be discussing in this workshop. So this is the link for it. I can put this in the chat for people. So this is where they are going to be discussing this plan. So you can attend this workshop and there's no cost, like it's free. So you can definitely use it. Now, if you want to keep in touch with us for similar webinars that we have, then you can get into this WhatsApp group here, because we frequently share the links to the webinars here. How to master communication skills, like how to speak right in a way that it does kind of black magic. Wow. Okay, and also tips to become confident during communication. What you are doing right now here, Shrey, is you are communicating your wish or your goal very clearly to me. So if you are not in a situation where you are a complete beginner, but why don't you attend this workshop, okay, and see what is the kind of game plan that is there for you to use. Okay, so it will give you exactly the step by step and the points how you can work on this. Okay. Shrey, does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. So if you want, like, different webinars or workshops, we share all the links in this WhatsApp group. So I can share the link of the WhatsApp group here. Is there any question that I've left unanswered? This course will be helpful for executives or non-lawyers. Yes, because a lot of the communication is not very lawyer specific. Okay, although the interactions are considered from a lawyer's angle, still a lot of the communication is not that specific. Okay, so it will be helpful for executives for sure. Okay, any other questions that you guys have? But it is not a grammar course, like how you find for an English language. It's a very interaction based course that you will come across. Like if you are if you are right now communicating in a regional language and you want to change to that, that's not something that it is. It'll cover the interactions that you have. Okay. Okay, any other specific questions that you have? Any other specific questions? No, I think I answered a lot of the questions. But if you have any further and you are in this WhatsApp group, you can put your questions here and it will be answered. Okay? And attend the workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop. You can have a lot of questions answered in that workshop also. Okay. So thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed the webinar and it gave some value to you at least. Okay. So if you wanted to put it, the amount of value that you got from out of 10, what will you put here? I want to know some. So how many points do you give to the webinar out of 10? Depending upon the value that it gave to you. Can some of them put? Thank you, Jagannath. It's 10 out of 10. Achinkya 10. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Depending upon the value that you got from the webinar. Okay. Because we will be changing our webinars and the content of the webinars based on your feedback on it. Okay. Okay. That's all. There are about 15 people here. Shrey 9. Okay. 8. Really informative. Thank you. What else? Okay, 9. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Okay, so attend the workshop. You can have more of your questions answered. Right? Thank you so much, Lohit. Nikhil. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. So have a great evening and bye-bye.